What's going on, everybody, and welcome back to my channel, Movie Files. Elliot here today to talk about the return of one of my favorite shows of 2019, and that is Apple TV Plus, The Morning Show Season 2, and today we're talking Episode 1, which is titled My Least Favorite Year. I'm so excited to be back talking about this show, and I'm so excited to be back with you all, breaking it all down here in this spoiler review. But before we break it all down, do me a favor and check me out on all my other social media accounts. If you all are new to the channel, well, welcome to the community. Consider subscribing and hitting that notification bell. That way you all can get the alert for when I drop new content. If you all enjoyed this spoiler review, well, make sure to like and share this review. It helps out the channel so much, but I also appreciate the support. And for all my morning fans out there, let's talk about the glorious return of the new season in this premiere episode. Let's talk about your pros, your cons. What events will this season tackle from the real world events that took place last year? Of course, the continuation of Fred and Mitch and Alex and Bradley and Corey and Chip and the whole damn crew. Let's talk about what you all hope to see, and let's talk about it in the comments below. So if you all do not know, back in 2019, I covered every single episode of this fantastic Emmy-winning show. I'm just so excited to be back because I felt that that first season had so much going for it, from not only a performance standpoint, a direction, the cinematography, the score, but just the conversations, the themes, the topics, the Me Too movement, the Harvey Weinstein situation, the discrimination, the racism within the corporate entities of a newscasting like we get with the first season. I thought it was fantastic, right? And I was so excited to dive deeper into season 2, and here we are discussing it. So let's break it all down again. This is a full spoiler review, so if you haven't seen the first episode of season 2, go check it out and come back and join the conversation. But let's dive deep into this episode as we open up, which I love that we get the events immediately after the bombshell of what happened in the finale, where Alex and Bradley tell the world about what happened to Hannah, what's going on with UBA, but also what's going on with Fred. So I love that we didn't get that time gap that we do get a couple minutes later, but I love that we just pick up immediately after last year's fantastic finale. But we go from that to seeing Corey getting it talking down to and actually getting fired by the higher ups in regards to everything that just went down. And Corey is just so great in regards to, he has some really great lines in this episode, and this is one of them as he gives this monologue regarding the soul of the universe is being fought for. So I just thought, and this leads right into the opening, into the credits, which I love the credits of this show. But what a great way to open up this new season. Again, picking up after the events of season 1's finale, seeing a continuation of that, seeing Corey get fired, and then we get the intro. So excited to be back. And again, that intro is so fantastic. But let's get into the thick of things. As we do get a time jump, we see quiet New York, not people walking the streets, which I think is foreshadowing for the year that we all know was 2020. And we'll talk about how this episode ends. But 3 months later, before the shit hits the fan. But we get in preparation of the new year as we see Bradley with her new host, Eric. Everything's looking up. Everyone's seeming happy. Things seem good, and not unfortunately good for the ratings, because we learned very early on that the ratings are low and they're down, and there are more situations of different colleagues, different anchors, and them being abusive coming up and them being let go of their jobs. So we're seeing the after effects of what went down last year in regards to Fred and everything that he did and all the abuse that he's done to the women. So I love that they're continuing that thread line and continuing that story. As we move forward to the time to get Alex back, as they're having a conversation in regarding the board, and Bradley time is seeming to run out in regards to this is part of the business. Ratings are down. We have new, more interesting, diverse type of co-hosts and different type of anchors that we would like to bring on board. And again, when ratings are down, that means it's time for a change. So Alex, we got to get you back in that chair. But speaking of Alex, she is doing her best interpretation, her best version of Luke Skywalker, aka in her winter cabin, or I should say better yet, she's doing her best version of Stephen King. So she's writing a book and she's in a cabin in the woods. I know she's writing The Shining, but she's telling a story about her life. But she's missing a pretty key component that we'll talk about here in a second. But going back to Bradley, we learned that Bradley has a little bit more pull, or at least she thinks she has more pull in UBA, because we learned that, I'm like, wait, didn't Corey get fired at the beginning of the episode? But no, it was Bradley that brought him back in, and she wants to take advantage of this new anchor who lost, or I should say Ray, who's been a part of UBA for a while. His allegations have come out that he was very verbally abusive to his workers, so she wants to move up. And again, Bradley's in a position right now where things are going good with Eric. You know, she knows the ratings are low, but she thinks she has a little bit more pull because, again, she was able to bring Corey back into the situation. So she thinks everything's uppity up, but we learned that Bradley doesn't have as much power as she thinks he does, especially when we get to the end of this episode. But it's in this conversation that we get our first mention of Hannah. And one of my things that I was looking forward to in this season was I hope they don't brush off that storyline, because if you all watch my series or season 1 finale, I mentioned in my last final moments, I wonder if Hannah's storyline and her parents or her family is going to come out and think that there's some lawsuits to be said, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. But I'm glad that this show is ignoring Hannah and the stuff that went down last season, because that was very pivotal to that story. So that was one of many Hannah mentions within this episode. But going to catching up with some of our other characters, as we see Chip is meeting with his new girlfriend, which I think is so funny because, number one, I watched The League, and seeing those two characters being on screen was great. But also, I don't know if you all know, but the real actors, they're married in real life. So it's just like, I love that they get to kind of have their on-screen chemistry match with their off-screen chemistry. So really cool to kind of catch up with Chip and see that he's in a good space, which is good for him because he went through a lot of stuff last year, and it's good to see him kind of having some levity. But it'll be interesting to see how this relationship plays out with his real wife in real life. But going back to Alex, as she's being told by her publicist, as she's writing this new novel, about her traumas and her past and the stuff she's went through to get to the position that she's in, the publicist says, look, this is all good, Alex, but we need some of that Mitch situation, that drama, that tea, which, again, Mitch isn't at all in this episode. His name is brought up quite a few times, but he's not actually physically in this episode. But her publicist is saying you need to bring that to the table because that's what people want to hear. That's what they want to read. As, you know, Alex wants to move on from this situation, the movement, as she calls it. As we know, in this world of the show, it was kind of the catalyst of the Me Too movement in their way in this show. And that was, you know, that tainted her career, so she doesn't want to go back to that hole, but that's something the past is catching up to Alex, and she's continuously trying to run away from the past, which the psychic tells her a little bit later. But let's go back to Corey as he's paying a visit to Alex King, as I'll call her. She's playing Stephen King in this first episode, and she finds out all the information about Eric and him moving up to the evening news, and they want her back in the chair. They want her to be there for a year to kind of boost up ratings, boost up Bradley, and maybe with this, Alex can get her own primetime show and get back in the thick of things. But she does not want this offer. She even gets offered more control over her career with UBA, but she's just not in a good space. She doesn't want to come back. She's not happy with that company. She's very happy with her life right now. She even says that she would rather die than return, which we all know is a front. She has to confront her demons. She has to confront what went down with Mitch. So I knew in my head by the end of this episode she was going to return, and we'll talk about her return a little bit later. But it's time for the big New Year Eve event as Bradley thanks Eric for being a great partner and a great host, and they take a drink together before they go live, and we're seeing the pressures of Corey as he hasn't told Bradley the news of the shakeup that they want to do with obviously Eric moving on to evening and her having this new partner. And again, Bradley's under the impression that she's been told everything. She's in a loop of everything, but she's going to catch some big surprises here in a second as we see Eric tells Bradley the news that he is going to be doing the evening news, and she thinks that things were different with UBA, but no, Alex, no, Bradley, it's still the same thing. There's just things you don't know, unfortunately, with UBA. But speaking of Alex, we go to her as she's at a Christmas party. She is talking to a fortune reader, and this is where she kind of learns that she has to face her demons. She's holding in a lot of resentment. She's running away from her problems, aka Mitch, and that's something that I think we're going to really dive into this season, is what Alex has to confront is her situation with Mitch and all the stuff she kept from the public, from what Mitch did to those women and his abusive ways, and obviously having that verbal communication with the public, but more importantly, having that conversation with Mitch. So I'm really looking forward to that moment. But let's wrap up the episode as Bradley confronts Corey, which was a great scene as he's describing his job as a broken boat and all this stuff. And Corey they're going back and forth at each other. She's calling him a liar. He's telling her, well, I can't tell you the truth because you'll just tell it to everyone. So they're going back and forth. Very intense scene. And again, This goes back to Bradley's like, hey, I got you back your job. You know, I'm having this leverage with UBA. I want to do this. I want to do that. She's thinking she's on, you know, on the pedestal, but it just kind of goes to show you that these corporate situations, man, you can't trust these people. And this relationship that was pretty solid in the first season when it comes to Bradley and Corey, but I think this is just the catalyst of their relationship slowly coming further and further apart as she learns the more deep secrets in the kind of the backstabbing nature of this business. But wrapping it up, Alex hears the voicemail that Corey leaves her, and it was kind of the catalyst to get her back to thinking about coming back to her job, her old job, which is, you haven't even accomplished the greatest things that you have planned yet. Well, she really needed to hear that, because she calls him back and we see the ball's about to drop and she says, can I trust you? And I love the way the camera kind of pans as she says, can I trust you, to Corey. He's looking at Bradley, who he literally just lied to, and he's lying to her because he's like, yeah, you can trust me. He's just saying that to get her back, obviously. And that's all she needed to hear as the ball drops, and I'm assuming that she'll be back by next episode, and we get these closing shots of everyone celebrating the new year, 2020, and we see this includes Alex celebrating, and it's time for the new year to come in. We end with Corey seeing breaking news, which again, this is the big thing that I was looking forward to in the season. What are the ramifications of Hannah, as we see breaking news that Hannah's family is suing UBA for an unlawful death, which I am really interested to see how all that plays out. And as he's reading that, I don't know if you all noticed, but there was a woman behind Corey who sneezed. As we all know, what 2020 had to offer with someone sneezing, I am just so intrigued to see how that plays into, I don't even want to say it because I know YouTube kind of has some triggering words that it triggers, but you all know what 2020 had to offer in regards to everything that went down. So she sneezes and we know what that means, and we get the return of one of my favorite shows, and I'm just so excited and I'm just so fascinated to know, number one, in regards to just the confines of the show, Alex and Bradley teaming up again, and the trust and the distrust with them. What's going to go on with Corey and him trying to fix all the stuff with UBA? What's going to happen with Fred? We still have Mitch, and obviously connections to Alex and how that plays out. We have all of our secondary characters and their relationships and the stuff that they're trying to do with trying to go up the chain of this corporate chain. And then more importantly, with it being 2020, how will the events of the real world play into the show in regards to obviously what we know, the tragedy of last year, whether it be obviously, you know, the stuff that went down with millions of people losing their lives, losing their jobs. How would that impact UBA? The injustices that went down, continue to go down, the celebrity deaths that happened last year. I mean, there's just so much to dive into, and I'm so excited to be looking forward to what this show has to offer, this new season of The Morning Show. That's my thoughts of this first pilot or premiere episode of season 2. It was fantastic, and I cannot wait to see what this season 2 has up its sleeve. But that's just my thoughts. Let me know your thoughts, your predictions for the weeks ahead. What do you hope to see in this new season? What impacts, real world situations do you think this show will try to tackle in this new season? And let's talk about it in the comments. If you stuck around to this point of the video, I thank you so much. I do plan on covering this show every single week like I did with season 1, and I hope you all go on this journey with me. But before you leave, make sure to like, share, comment, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and oh yeah, hit that notification bell. That way you don't miss any of my future reviews. As you can see on the screen now, we got playlists for my Apple TV Plus reviews. We got my most recent review, and of course subscribe to the channel. Hope you all are staying safe. Hope you enjoyed this review. We'll see you in the next video.